Proverbs 31 woman is every man's prayer, every man's wish, every man's desire. But the question that begs an answer is, does every man deserve the Proverbs 31 woman? Because let's not be fooled. Cars, homes, property, and land, you can inherit from your pops. You can inherit that moti from your paps. You can inherit that crib from your paps. But when it comes to a wife, a good wife, that one only God gives. So when God is going through the affairs of the sons of men, and God is considering whom to entrust with his prized inheritance. I wouldn't want to say possession. Prized inheritance. Because that's what all we are. We are God's inheritance. So when God is looking at the well-deserving men amongst the sons of men to entrust, it is upon you to avail yourself as a man deserving of this type of a woman. It's very important that as a man, the way you go about your affairs and the way you go about your life, are you deserving of a virtuous woman? Are you deserving of great kids? Are you deserving of well-mannered, cultured kids? Are you deserving of intelligent kids? Are you deserving of talented kids? Are you deserving of a virtuous woman? It is something that we have established merely from reading this chapter, that this type of woman is not in abundant supply. This type of a woman is in rare supply. Because verse 29 says, many are the women of proven worth, but you have excelled them all. So that is an established fact. Not every woman you come across, she might be as attractive as a peacock, but not every woman you come across is a virtuous woman. That one we have established. So how then as a man, is it within your reach to distinguish yourself and differentiate yourself as one deserving of a virtuous woman? Is that something that is within our control, within our influence? Or is that something that we just relinquish to fate? That if fate would have it. It's one of those things that we need to consider. So let's look at the anchor verse for Proverbs 31. What is the anchor verse? The anchor verse, in my opinion, is verse 23. Without this verse, the entire chapter collapses. And so it's very interesting how the author has tucked that anchor verse deep somewhere for you to seek it out. And that's one of the most beautiful things in life, that there are things that we need to seek out. You need to seek out destiny. You need to seek out certain things. You need to seek out the true intentions of people that you interact with. So the author tucks this, the anchor, in verse 23. And this is what verse 23 says. Her husband is prominent as at the city gates, as he sits with the elders of the land. When this chapter was being authored, this chapter is authored against a backdrop of a patriarchal society. This woman thrives amidst or behind a backdrop of a patriarchal society. Against all that, what do you think would make such a woman thrive? Can we assume that this woman has come from a noble family? We cannot make that assumption. Can we assume that this woman has arrived at this juncture in her life because of her schooling? We cannot assume that one. Is it her education? Is it her culture? Is it, what can we place as the reason why this woman thrives in a patriarchal society. This woman engages in endeavors that were exclusively the preserve for men. That is one important question that you and I need to answer. So the backdrop of this entire thing is the husband is prominent and sits at the city gate. By the time the author is putting together this chapter, in those days, important things about a land or a city were discussed at the gates. Tax collectors sat at the city gates. Policy makers sat at the city gates. So the entry of every town, that entry, the people who determined who would get access to that civilization, who would get access to that culture, who would get access to that niche or neat neighborhood were very powerful people, noble people, policy makers, lawmakers. It's one of the reasons why, if you've ever attended my class, I am known for this one thing, that if you don't sit at a policy table, you don't exist and you don't matter. Regardless of how much you earn, regardless of the car that you drive, regardless of where you live, if you don't sit at a policy table, you don't exist. So it's your duty as well as mine to ask myself, in my environment, where is the immediate policy table that I can assume, that I can find, and where I can position myself? Policy table exists at ward level. Policy tables exist at constituency level. Policy table exists at county level. Policy tables exist at regional levels. Policy tables exist at national level. So it's upon you to ask yourself, of what value am I to my MCA? Of what value am I to my MP? Of what value am I to my women rep? Of what value am I to my senator? Of what value am I to my governor? Of what value am I to a parastatal? Of what value am I to a cabinet secretary? Of what value am I to the president? This provides us with different layers upon which you as an individual, you can find utility and find a sitting for yourself amidst policymakers. It's one of those duties that as an individual, you really need to look at. What is the level of my effectiveness in this community that I exist in? What is the level of my effectiveness in this overall society? How valuable am I to the chief? How valuable am I to my assistant county commissioner? So it's very important for you and I to constantly assess that. In my class, I always ask, in your phone today, who is the most important person on your phone? Because the most important person that you have saved on your phone is that individual that can give you access. So if today you needed to do something at constituency level, I would expect that you have the number to your MP on your speed dial. So this gentleman, her husband, the gentleman, sits in prominence at the city gates as he sits with the elders of the land. That is not a visitor. He didn't go there for a selfie. That is someone who is there courtesy of his contribution. The gentleman might not be an elder, but he sits among elders. So that means it is your duty as well as mine to find in our ecosystems what are those places whereby I can volunteer contribution. As an individual, as a professional, I can volunteer my contribution. And that's why intellectual property gives us unique areas of contribution, because your intellectual property is unique to you. Your intellectual property contributions are uniquely you. So it's very important that even as we look at setting pace, and that is what a man is meant to be a pace setter. Setting pace for your family, setting pace for your children, setting pace for people around you, setting pace for your woman, setting pace for your wife. A man, your first cardinal duty is to be a pace setter. It is very important that constantly when the sun rises up, you need to rise up from your slumber that today I am a pace setter. I'm setting pace for my family. I am setting pace for my marriage. I'm setting pace for the people I work with. I'm setting pace for my children. And I want to set this pace. I want to put my family on a trajectory that is going to inform our destiny. This, ladies and gentlemen, in my own humble opinion, is the strength of the Proverbs 31 woman. So this type of a woman is unique in her way. This type of a woman excels because of what the husband has put. The husband has put an enabling infrastructure. When a man sets pace, you're creating an enabling infrastructure for your wife to thrive. When you set pace in your career, you're creating an enabling environment for the people around you to thrive. A man is meant to be a cultivator. And the first cultivation that you do is you need to cultivate environments. Environments that will enable everyone around you to thrive, everyone around you to prosper, everyone around you to excel. As a man, your wife will only rise to the tempo that you have set as a pace setter. Your children will only arise to the tempo and the pace that you have set. My name is Ogwang.